Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating journey into something super personal, but also, universally impactful, the daily routine. We've got this unique stack of sources, and they give a really intimate look at how you two winding down.
Yeah, the whole arc.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack all these insights, pull out the really key nuggets, and understand how these intentional habits can, fundamentally shape productivity, focus, well-being, all that good stuff.
Right.
You'll find some surprising things about common habits, maybe a bit of humor too.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how these everyday actions, things we often do without even thinking, can actually be reframed. They become powerful tools.
Okay.
If you connect it to the bigger picture, like a well-crafted routine isn't just about checking boxes off a list.
Right. Not just efficiency.
Exactly. It's about creating this supportive framework for your whole life. It encourages consistency, cuts down on decision fatigue, and builds in that crucial self-care.
Makes sense.
So we'll explore not just what people are doing in these routines, but really why it matters, why it might matter to you.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting right at the beginning, the foundation, morning rituals. What did our sources say makes for a really strong start?
Well, it often starts with that familiar sound.
The alarm. Yeah. And for many, it's that struggle, isn't it? Hitting snooze, maybe once, maybe twice.
Guilty.
Before finally, dragging yourself out of bed. It seems almost universal. What did the sources suggest about winning that tiny first battle?
You're definitely not alone there. That moment, it's actually a critical decision point. They suggested things like mentally committing the night before, or even just physically putting your alarm across the room.
Oh, the classic move.
Yeah. It just builds this small psychological hurdle, makes the easy choice, snooze, a bit harder, and right away you get this little sense of agency, like, I did it.
That's a great point. Small change, big difference potentially. Okay, so you're up. What's next?
Well, the very first physical act for loads of people seems to be hydration. Our sources really hammered this home. Hydration first, always. Could be cold water to, quote, really wake me up, or maybe hot water for tea. But why is this step one right out of the gate?
Well, it raises that question, doesn't it? Why hydration? It's because after, 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep, your body is naturally dehydrated.
Okay.
So the sources explain that rehydrating right away, it kickstarts your metabolism, it helps with cognitive function. It can even cut down on that morning grogginess.
Wow.
It's like giving your internal systems a much needed splash of cold water to get them fully online.
Right, like turning the engine over. It's amazing how simple water can be so powerful. Okay, beyond water, what about mindful engagement, setting the mental tone?
Yeah, this is interesting. Simple acts like opening the curtains, letting in sunlight, making the bed was a big one. People said it makes them feel productive right away. What's the psychology there? Is it just about tidiness?
It's more than just tidiness. What's fascinating here is that these aren't just chores. They're like mini wins.
Mini wins. I like that.
Yeah. Studies mentioned in the sources suggest that even these small, consistent acts of ordering your environment, making the bed, they trigger a positive feedback loop in your brain.
Okay.
It creates this immediate sense of control, competence. It kind of primes your brain for more productivity and can actually reduce perceived stress.
Wow. Okay. So you've already won a little battle before the day really gets going.
Exactly.
And here's another interesting one. Taking a deep breath, sitting up, and consciously not looking at the phone immediately.
And that's a big one.
Right. Instead, maybe doing a little mindfulness exercise, just looking outside. What's the payoff for delaying that screen time? We're all so glued to them.
This is really crucial for protecting your mental space first thing. Our sources highlighted that jumping straight to your phone, it just bombards you with external demands, information overload before your own internal compass is even set.
Right, before you've even had a coffee, maybe.
Exactly. So delaying that, even for just a few minutes of quiet observation or some deep breaths, it lets you consciously choose your focus for the day, rather than just reacting to whatever hits your inbox or your feed first. It protects that morning clarity.
Claiming that mental space. I like that. Okay, physically then.
Some sources mention quick, 10-minute body weight exercises, said it helped them feel energized and focused, or even just light stretches while the kettle boils.
Movement.
Then breakfast, lots of variety, but a common theme seemed to be keeping it fairly light. Strong black coffee, sure, but also eggs on toast with avocado, Greek yogurt with honey and granola, oats with cinnamon and banana.
Yeah, nourishing but not heavy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the thinking there? Well, that emphasis on lighter, nutrient-dense breakfasts, it directly tackles that post-meal slump. You know, the tiredness you get after a really heavy meal,
Yes.
especially high sugar or high fat ones.
Oh yeah, the food coma.
Right. So this is about providing sustained energy without diverting too much blood flow away from your brain to your stomach for heavy digestion.
Yeah,
Keeps you sharp.
makes total sense. And then setting the mental tone. Some people listen to calm instrumental music, maybe an inspirational podcast to start the day on a positive note.
Yeah.
Others write in a gratitude journal, like just 3 things they're thankful for to stay grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And another strategy was grabbing a planner, looking at the top 3 priorities for the day. These aren't just like feel-good fluff, are they? There's a real purpose.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And this raises that key question again. How do these seemingly small, consistent actions ripple out? How do they affect the whole day? They really demonstrate the power of setting the tone for your brain. Listening to something uplifting or practicing gratitude, it can literally prime your brain for a more positive outlook, potentially reducing stress hormones like cortisol.
Okay.
And prioritizing tasks first thing, that actively reduces decision fatigue later on. You've already decided what's important, so you can allocate your best mental energy more effectively.
You know, moving into the workday strategies, I was really struck by how much the sources emphasize managing your attention, not just your time.
That's a key distinction.
Yeah. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. How do we actually make those core working hours count? Well, it starts with planning, prioritization, checking planners, calendars, reviewing emails. But here's a key insight from our sources. Avoiding checking email first thing.
Right.
And instead batch checking them, maybe just twice a day, to stay focused. Then making that priority list. Why is batching so important? Seems counterintuitive, maybe.
The wisdom there, it really lies in fighting against constant context switching. Every time you glance at an email, your brain has to shift gears,
Right.
And it leaves behind what some researchers call attention residue. You're not fully focused on the next thing.
Ah, okay.
So batching emails minimizes those disruptive switches. It allows for longer stretches of sustained focus on your main tasks. It's about being proactive with your attention, not just reacting to every ping.
There's a powerful way to put it, proactive attention. Then there's this big emphasis on deep work.
Yeah, Cal Newport's concept.
Right, which means intentionally blocking out maybe a few hours for really focused, uninterrupted work. Stuff that needs your full brain power, like writing, complex planning, editing.
The heavy lifting.
Exactly. Getting into that play state instead of trying to juggle 5 things. And to really protect that time, sources mention silencing phones, using noise-canceling headphones and lo-fi music to stay in the zone. This isn't just about blocking sound, though, is it? There's more going on.
Precisely. It's not just blocking sound. It's about creating an external attentional filter.
Yep.
It helps your brain more easily enter and sustain that state of deep focus. It reduces the cognitive load of constantly having to resist distractions.
Right.
It signals to your brain, and maybe even colleagues, that you're in a dedicated work mode. And that allows for much higher quality output, usually.
I can definitely see how that would help create that bubble.
Okay? But you can't just focus intensely for 8 hours straight. Breaks are key.
Absolutely crucial.
The Pomodoro technique came up that classic 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, longer break after maybe 4 rounds,
Yep, very popular.
but also simpler things. Standing up, stretching every hour, even a quick 5-minute walk around the block for fresh air. Because, as one source put it, movement boosts brain power.
It really does.
So what stand out to you about these different work strategies? The focus, the breaks?
What stands out is that purposeful integration of focus and rest.
Check.
And it makes you ask, how do these structured approaches actually combat the information overload and the creative blocks that are just so common today?
Yeah, good question. The wisdom here, I think, lies in managing your energy and attention throughout the day. Those brief breaks, they aren't slacking off. They actually prevent cognitive fatigue, they help consolidate memory, and they can stimulate fresh perspectives when you come back to the task. It's about working smarter, not just grinding harder.
Working smarter, not harder. Got it. And then lunch. The big takeaway seemed pretty clear. Keep it light.
Definitely.
Nobody wants that dreaded afternoon slump, right? That heavy feeling. Sources were clear. Light lunches help avoid the post-lunch slump. Examples were things like wraps, salads with protein, soups, smoothie bowls, grain bowls with lots of veggies.
Balanced, not too heavy.
And a crucial point someone made, never eat lunch at my desk. That's sacred rest time. Why is stepping away, making it sacred, so important?
Well, the sources really emphasize this isn't just about taking a break from your screen, though that's part of it. It's about mentally disengaging.
Yeah.
Giving your brain a proper reset. That sacred rest time, it allows for better digestion, sure, better energy for the afternoon, but maybe more importantly, it helps prevent burnout by creating a really distinct boundary between work time and personal time, even if it's just for that hour.
A boundary. Okay, that makes sense. So you've set a good morning tone. You've navigated the workday with focus and breaks. What about the transition out, that shift from work mode to home mode?
Yeah, that can be tricky.
Our sources showed it's really important to be deliberate about it. How do you wind down after a busy day? A clear signal seemed key, actually deciding to unplug from work, often around, say, 5:30 p.m. That was highlighted as pretty essential.
Setting that boundary again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then come the activities to help with that mental switch off. Movement was popular again, going for a walk, hitting the gym, ways to clear my head after work. Some even listen to audiobooks, maybe in English, while exercising. What's the psychological benefit of using exercise to transition?
What's really fascinating there is that deliberate shift from on to off, often using movement. If we connect that to the bigger picture, physical activity isn't just about fitness here. It acts as this powerful mental reset button.
Okay.
It helps you process, maybe release some of the day's stress. It changes your physiological state from one of cognitive intensity to physical release. It basically signals to your brain pretty clearly, okay, the workday is done now.
A physical signal for a mental shift.
Yeah.
Got it. Then back at home, rituals like tidying the kitchen, making tea, cooking dinner, these were described as things that help people switch off mentally. One person even called cooking almost like therapy.
I can see that.
The examples were simple but nice meals. Grilled veggies, salmon, chickpea curry, playing with herbs and spices. How is cooking therapy, though?
Well, the sources kind of explain that the repetitive, tactile nature of it, chopping vegetables, stirring a pot of it, can be incredibly meditative.
Oh.
It shifts your focus away from abstract work problems onto tangible sensory experiences. Smell, touch, taste. It gives your mind a real break from that intense cognitive stuff. So that kind of focused, hands-on activity, it really highlights its value beyond just, making food. It becomes a form of active self-care.
Active self-care through cooking. Interesting. And finally, in the evening, there's leisure and learning. Having some downtime, watching a show, reading a book. Examples were like a British mystery series, documentaries, other shows, often watched with English subtitles, specifically to absorb natural phrases.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. And someone mentioned keeping a note on their phone of new words or phrases they heard. So it seems the evening is about relaxing, yes, but also maybe some continued engagement, just on your own terms.
Exactly. These evening activities, they're not just about killing time. They're about active self-care, yes, but also that mental disconnection from work and maybe some continued low-pressure learning or enrichment. Yeah. Like engaging with a new language through subtitles. That's a great way to keep your brain active without the heavy lifting of formal study. It's about enriching your mind while you're actually unwinding.
Enriching while unwinding. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, final stretch. Preparing for rest. The nighttime rituals.
So important.
Absolutely. Our sources showed a really thoughtful approach here, something that often gets overlooked, I think.
Agreed.
So maybe around 9:30 p.m., the routine starts to shift. Dimming the lights, putting the phone on airplane mode, that came up again, and really starting to consciously wind down.
Setting the scene.
Yeah. Relaxation techniques mentioned included lighting a candle, reading for maybe 15 minutes, but something simple, not work-related. A few yoga stretches. Breathing exercises came up too, especially feeling anxious, and that gratitude list again.
Calming the system.
And a really firm rule for some was no screens an hour before bed. Crucial, they said. Reading a physical book instead, because we know screens right before bed are just not great.
The blue light issue.
Right. Why is this whole package, the dim lights, no screens, relaxation, why is it so important for getting good sleep?
Well, this raises that critical question again. How does this structured approach to sleep help more than just physical rest? How does it maybe reinforce everything else from the day?
Yeah.
The systematic reduction of light, dimming the lights, that signals to your brain, hey, it's time to ramp up melatonin production. It aligns you with your natural circadian rhythm. And that no screens rule is absolutely vital because the blue light from our devices actively suppresses melatonin. It messes with your sleep cycle.
Okay, so it's really about priming your body biologically for rest.
Precisely.
And then just before bed, or maybe once your head hits the pillow, there was this practice of reflecting, thinking about how you engaged with new information that day, asking like, did I learn something new? Did I use it? The goal typically being lights out by 11. What stands out to you about these nighttime strategies, especially that reflection piece?
What really underscores the whole thing for me is that integration of physical relaxation with mental reflection, that reflection on learning, it isn't just a nice thought exercise. It actually helps with memory consolidation.
Really?
Yeah. It helps your brain process and sort of cement the new knowledge you took in during the day while you sleep. It creates this powerful feedback loop. The day's learning gets optimized and you go to bed feeling perhaps a sense of accomplishment or closure. It's a really holistic way to end the day, valuing both rest and retention.
Wow. Holistic is a good word for it. So there you have it. A real deep dive into how intentionally structuring your day, from that very first alarm, maybe even the snooze battle,
Right.
all the way to dimming the lights at night.
Yeah.
How it can fundamentally transform your focus, your well-being. We've seen how each part of the day, if you approach it mindfully, builds on the next one. It creates this really powerful framework. And it seems clear that consistency in these small, deliberate actions is way more impactful than, trying to achieve some kind of elusive perfection.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's not about perfection. It's about intention and consistency.
Right.
And that brings us to maybe a final provocative thought for you, the listener. Consider just one small adjustment you could make to your own daily routine, maybe something specific we talked about today.
Just one thing.
Yeah, just one thing, something that might significantly impact your focus or your energy or even just your sense of calm. How might that single small change ripple through your entire day? And, what new possibilities might that unlock for you?